Naturally, the common people don't want war, but it is always a simple matter to drag the people along. Voice or no voice, the people can always be brought to the bidding of the leaders. All you have to do is tell them they are being attacked, and denounce the pacifists for lack of patriotism. They didn't sell you war. They sold you the version of yourself that would go.
I'm pretty sure you already know how horrifying war can be. But when you actually picture it, when the image shows up in your head, is it the horror or is it something else? Slow motion, a flag, a score in D minor, someone running towards something while everyone else is running away. You think that's your fault? That's a century of cinema doing exactly what it was designed to do. Now you might think, okay, it's just filmmakers paying tribute, honoring the people who sacrificed everything to protect us. Noble intention, beautiful execution, what's the problem? But what if I told you it was never just that? What if the most powerful storytelling machine ever built, aka Hollywood, had a second agenda running quietly underneath the tribute? What if the grief, the glory, and the slow motion sacrifice were also at the same time the most effective recruiting poster ever made? Today we're going to talk about the greatest con job in the history of entertainment, how Hollywood, sometimes willingly, sometimes with a gun to its own head, took the worst thing human beings do to each other and turned it into something that people stand in line for. And we're going to talk about why, in 2026, with everything happening in the world right now, this matters more than it ever has. Part 1. Did you know the United States Pentagon has an entertainment liaison office? An actual office? With actual staff, whose actual job is to read Hollywood scripts and decide whether the US military looks good enough in them to lend the production their aircraft carriers. And I cannot stress enough how much movies need aircraft carriers. You know how much an aircraft carrier costs to charter? Well, neither do I, but trust me, it's a lot. And the military will give it to you, free of charge, in exchange for creative consultation rights. Which basically means that if your script has a scene where a general makes a bad call and people die unnecessarily, that scene needs to go. If your film implies that the mission might have been built on a lie, that implication softens. If you want to show soldiers experiencing post-traumatic stress disorder, moral injury, or doubt, you can keep it in as long as the overall message is that institution is good. This is documented. This is not conspiracy theory. Researcher David Robb spent years filing Freedom of Information requests and wrote an entire book about it called Operation Hollywood. The military has provided direct assistance to over 800 films and TV shows since World War II. Let's talk specifics. Top Gun, the 1986 original. You know this one. Tom Cruise, Ray-Bans, volleyball scene. What you might not know is that Air Force literally set up recruitment booths in cinema lobbies during the film's run, which means that they expected people to enlist right after watching the film.
Boy, do I have a job for you. Wow.
Unsurprisingly, enlistment for naval aviators spiked significantly in the months after release. The sequel, Top Gun Maverick 2022, was made with full military cooperation, meaning the production had access to real F-18s and real carriers. The film is breathtaking. It is also, functionally, a $170 million recruitment commercial. But at least Top Gun knows what it is. It's cheerful about it. It doesn't pretend to have moral complexity. The interesting cases are the films that do claim moral complexity and then get co-opted anyway. Top Gun definitely takes cake when it comes to propaganda disguised as a movie. But there are plenty other movies like this. Simple way to tell if it was made with government support is if it has access to military buildings and expensive military equipment, because they don't just give away those for free. Second movie I want to talk about is Zero Dark 30, Catherine Bigelow, 2012. A film about the hunt for Osama bin Laden that depicts, in graphic detail, torture. Enhanced interrogation, they called it. The film received classified briefings from the CIA. Members of Congress wrote letters demanding to know what exactly had been shared, and whether the film was going to sanitize the torture program. The film is ambiguous enough on the question that critics spent months arguing about what it was actually saying, but I would say that meaning behind it is not that complicated. The point of this film was never to tell a true story. It just takes a person that everyone hates and justifies torture as a way to get justice. So if torture is seen as a morally justified, then you can torture anyone. But the CIA got their consultation credit, the film got its excess, and the audience got a thriller. Third movie I want to discuss is Saving Private Ryan, 1998, Spielberg. The first 27 minutes, the Omaha beach landing, are unlike anything put on screen before. Handheld camera, men dying before you learn their names. Relentless, awful, and real, in a way studio war films never had been. Now, there is no evidence that this film was made with cooperation with intelligence agencies. However, it's relevant to this topic because of its meaning. Veterans said it was the closest anything had come to the truth. Here's my question, and then what? Because after those 27 minutes, the film becomes a quest narrative. Tom Hanks as the decent everyman, a mission to save one man, a sacrifice at the end that gives it all meaning. The film opens with chaos and death, and ends with a flag and tears. Spielberg gave you the horror, and then he gave you the meaning. And the meaning, the sacrifice, the nobility, the flag. That's what you walk out carrying. I want to be fair. Some directors resist, some fight for their vision. Francois Truffaut said that there is no such thing as anti-war film. But I disagree. I would suggest few, but because of how disturbing these films are, I can only name Grave of the Fireflies, which doesn't depict a heroic soldier. It shows the reality of two kids, left without parents trying to get through Second World War. It genuinely is one of the saddest movies I have ever seen. In my opinion, real anti-war films should show how meaningless war is, how millions of people die for others' pointless ambition. If you put meaning to it, then they didn't die for nothing, while the truth is that they in fact died for nothing. All of it could have been avoided if humans were not relying on third entities to give them a purpose. You're not naive for finding war movies captivating, that pull you feel, that tightening in your chest when the music swells and the soldiers charge. I wouldn't say it's a personal failing, I would call it the evolution with a film degree. Human beings are social animals. For most of human history, the most important social unit, instead of the family or the company or the nation state, was the war band, the small group of men who hunted together, fought together, and kept each other alive. That electric feeling of dissolving into something larger than yourself, of being part of a body that moves as one. Religion, concerts, and football stadiums, they all do this too. War apparently does this better than anything. Cinema understood this before sociology had words for it, and it built the experience in controlled conditions. No actual dying required. Think about the war film as a product. What does it sell? It sells brotherhood. You and the guy next to you against the world. It sells purpose, a clear enemy, a clear mission, a clear definition of what makes a man worth something. It sells the idea that your body, your strength, your courage, your willingness to suffer is the most important thing about you. Not your emotional intelligence, not your ability to listen, not your capacity for vulnerability. And it sells this to boys, 13, 14, 15 years old. Boys who are in the process of figuring out what kind of man they're supposed to be. And cinema hands them the answer with a Zimmer score underneath it. Now, here's where it gets interesting, because this isn't just entertainment business, this is something more organized than that. The argument cinema has been making for a century is simple. The highest form of manhood is the willingness to fight and die for something larger than yourself. Brotherhood is the deepest bond available to men. The body, its strength, its capacity for violence, is a man's most fundamental resource. That argument is now colliding with a generation of young men who are absolutely adrift. Men are more isolated, less employed, more depressed than any comparable generation. Fewer friends, less purpose, no clear answer to the question, what am I even for? And into that vacuum, cinema has been piping a very clear answer their entire lives. You are for the mission, you are for the tribe, you are for the war. And when actual war isn't available, there are men on the internet happy to sell you the aesthetic, the warrior identity, the idea that life is a battlefield and weakness is the enemy. You know who I'm talking about. I'm not going to give him more traffic. The pipeline from Hollywood war film to online warrior culture to military recruitment doesn't require anyone to be radicalized. It's just the natural downstream of the culture cinema built. When a young man who's been told his whole life that men find meaning in struggle finally meets someone who says, yes, and here's how you access that. That's not manipulation, that's completion. And the military knows it. Recruitment has been in crisis for years. Their response: lean harder into gaming, esports, cinematic ads that look like video game trailers. They're making the content themselves now. They cut out the middleman. I'm not saying war movies are evil. I'm not saying you're a bad person for loving Saving Private Ryan, or that 1917 isn't worth admiring. I'm saying the way cinema frames war has almost always served a particular interest, and that interest is not the truth about what war does to human beings. There are films that try. I said I wouldn't name drop, but if you have good enough mental health and capacity, then movie Come and See, 1985, will make you want to never watch another war film again. It achieved that by refusing at every turn to make violence beautiful. Kubrick's Paths of Glory is still devastating. Waltz with Bashir animated movie understands that the problem isn't just the enemy, it's the human capacity to look away from what we've done. These films exist. They don't get sequel franchises. The ones that make $500 million are the ones with the jets, the flags, and the score that tells you exactly when to cry. And we should think about what it means that we handed the job of teaching boys what men are to an industry that needed an aircraft carrier and got one by promising not to make the generals look stupid. Those boys grew up. They're voting. They're enlisting. They're online, looking for a tribe and a mission and something that feels, for once, like they matter. Cinema told them what that looks like. The least we can do is notice.